Ant-Man's story begins in the 1960s with Hank Pym's discovery of what he calls the Pym particle, a formula to change the distance between atoms, to shrink things. He uses the technology to create the Ant-Man suit, which allows one to shrink while retaining their strength. He also develops the EMP communication device, allowing him to telepathically control ants. Using the technology, he becomes a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent known as Ant-Man. In 1987, Dr. Hank Pym is still working for S.H.I.E.L.D. as the Ant-Man. He is now joined by his wife, Janet Van Dyne, who uses her own Wasp suit. And when a Soviet missile is launched at the United States, they are sent to stop it. But they're unable to cut through its solid titanium shell, meaning the only way in is to shrink between the molecules. A dangerous prospect. Going subatomic means entering the quantum realm, a place where time and space are irrelevant, a place where you shrink for eternity with no return. But Hank knows what must be done. But unfortunately, his suit is damaged and he can't make the trip. So, Janet doesn't hesitate. She shuts off her regulator and goes subatomic. The bomb is stopped, but Hank returns home from the mission alone, where he has to tell his daughter Hope that her mother is gone, though he covers up the truth, telling her that she died in a plane crash. In 1989, Dr. Hank Pym's time with S.H.I.E.L.D. comes to an end when he discovers that they, led by Howard Stark, have been trying to recreate the Pym particle, something he locked away after losing his wife because he knew it was too dangerous. So he resigns and locks away his research again. In 1995, a ghost is born. Ava Starr used to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. until Hank Pym fired and discredited him, so he continued quantum research on his own, and without Hank's oversight, took bigger risks, which gets him and his wife killed, while inflicting his daughter with something called molecular disequilibrium. Every cell in her body is constantly torn apart and stitched back together over and over. It's painful, but also grants her the ability to phase through matter. One of Hank's colleagues, Bill Foster, hears about it and brings her into S.H.I.E.L.D. He tries to keep her safe, but S.H.I.E.L.D. sees opportunity in her. Over time, they will build her a containment suit to control her power and use her abilities to their own ends, all with the promise of delivering a cure that will never come. 20 years later, Scott Lang is let out of prison after serving 3 years. He was arrested after stealing from his employer VistaCorp. He discovered they were intentionally overcharging customers, so he stole the ill-gotten gains and returned it to the customers. Maybe the right thing to do, but against the law nonetheless. Though now he's free, he feels anything but, because the thing he wants most is inaccessible to him: to be a father for his daughter, Cassie. His ex-wife is engaged to police officer Jim Paxton, and they're not keen on the girl being around an ex-con. But soon, an opportunity presents itself. In the 26 years since Hank Pym left S.H.I.E.L.D., he started his own company, PymTech, and was fired from it, something perpetrated by his once protege Darren Cross. Cross and Pym didn't see eye to eye. After losing his wife to the quantum realm, Hank refused to work on shrink tech, but Cross saw its potential as a weapon and knew it could make him rich. Now he's close to finally recreating the Pym particle. He's even built his own answer to the Ant-Man suit, the Yellow Jacket. Hank cannot allow that. If Cross sells that power to the highest bidder, it would put the world in danger. He needs someone capable of sneaking into PymTech and destroying it. His daughter Hope insists she's the perfect candidate. She works at PymTech, and Cross trusts her. But after losing his wife, Hank refuses to risk losing his daughter as well. So despite her insistence, he forbids it. Instead, he finds a thief with a heart of gold and something to prove: Scott Lang. Pym needs his skills, and Scott needs to be a hero for his daughter. They recruit him, and they train him. But he has a hard time mastering the tech, especially the telepathic link with ants, until Hope tells him something he needs to hear. But first, he tells her something she needs to hear. Hope argues with her father. Why won't he tell her what really happened to her mother? And why does he trust Scott more than her to do the job? But outside, Scott sets the record straight. "Hope," he says, "look at me. I'm expendable. That's why I'm here. You must have realized that by now. I mean, that's why I'm in the suit and you're not. He'd rather lose this fight than lose you." She believes him. She realizes her father does love her, and he does trust her. Now she's ready to help Scott and tell him how to master the Ant-Man tech. You have to clear your mind, Scott. You have to make your thoughts precise. That's how it works. Think about Cassie and how badly you want to see her, and use that to focus. When they head back in, Hank finally tells Hope what really happened to her mother. She wasn't killed in a plane crash. She went subatomic to stop a missile and ended up shrinking for eternity in the quantum realm. It's a dire warning to Scott. Never go subatomic. Soon, with Scott refocused on his daughter, he learns to control the suit and an army of ants. Finally, he's ready. First, they'll need a transmission blocker, something Hank built back in the day, which has been collecting dust in an old Stark warehouse. Except that warehouse was recently converted into Avengers HQ, something they didn't know until they arrived. Rather than a clean break-in, Scott is forced to fight the Avenger on guard duty, Falcon, and surprising the Avenger with a shrink ability he's never seen, Scott wins. Finally, they're ready for the main event. The plan is to sneak into Pymtech, get Cross's suit, and destroy the research. To pull off the heist, Scott needs a little help from his friends, his old cellmate Louise, and his two friends Dave and Kurt. The day of the heist comes just in time, as Cross makes a deal to sell his tech to Hydra. Things go well at first, except Cross has become suspicious, and repeated exposure to the particles have made him a little unhinged. When he catches Scott in the act, he gets violent. He puts on the Yellow Jacket suit, leading to a chaotic brawl between the two shrinking men. Reaching a stalemate, Cross goes after Lang's weakness, his daughter. The Yellow Jacket approaches the girl, while her soon-to-be stepfather Paxton tries to protect her. Desperate, Ant-Man has an idea. Maybe if he could shrink and get inside the Yellow Jacket's suit. Only problem is that it's made of titanium. To get through, he'd have to go subatomic. And to save his daughter, he's willing to pay that price. Lang destroys the Yellow Jacket suit from the inside, crushing Cross to subatomic size, and then just as Hank warned, Scott continues to shrink, without any signs of stopping. But even in that chaotic place where time and space are irrelevant, he hears the voice of his daughter, calling for him. That focuses him. He has an idea. One of his gadgets is a small device he can throw at things to make them bigger. He puts it inside his suit's regulator, and by combining the tech, returns to normal size. Not only does he live, but he gets to be close to his daughter again. After watching how far Scott would go to protect her, Paxton is won over. Scott may sometimes break the law, but he always does the right thing. And Paxton isn't the only one impressed by Scott. So is Hope. Something Hank learns when he opens the door to find them kissing. But their relationship is soon tarnished. The following year, Scott Lang is roped into an Avengers civil war. After the chaos unleashed by Ultron and an incident in Nigeria resulting in the death of 26 people, the world demands accountability. The United Nations passes the Sokovia Accords. No longer are the heroes a private organization following their own judgment, but instead, the UN dictates where and when they can intervene. Tony Stark and a few others support the Accords, but Rogers staunchly opposes it, putting his trust in individuals over bureaucracies. In the resulting battle between heroes who support the Accords and those who don't, Falcon recruits Ant-Man to Captain America's side, having met Lang in their scuffle at Avengers HQ the year prior. During their fight at an airport in Germany, Ant-Man reveals a new ability he's been fostering, the ability to grow giant. The battle gets Lang arrested, and since he was using Hank and Hope's Ant-Man tech, the two of them are implicated as well. So while Scott endures house arrest, Hank and Hope go on the run as fugitives. They break contact with Scott and focus their efforts on rescuing Janet from the quantum realm, a hope renewed in Hank after watching Scott enter the realm and return alive. And without Scott, they've built a suit turning Hope into the new Wasp. In 2018, Scott approaches the last 3 days of his house arrest. Although he's fallen out with Hank and Hope, otherwise, he's doing well. He's started a security consultation business with Louise, and he's on much better terms with his family. One night, Scott has a dream which feels more like a memory, but not his own. Through the eyes of Hank's wife, Janet Van Dyne, he sees a young Hope. So he calls Hank and leaves a message about the strange dream. Hank and Hope get that message the day after first activating their quantum tunnel, a machine which should allow them to safely go subatomic and retrieve Janet. That can't be a coincidence. They realize Scott and Janet must have become entangled on a quantum level, and maybe they can use that entanglement to figure out Janet's location in the quantum realm. But it's not that simple. There are several other parties who get in their way. The FBI hopes to catch the Pyms and find Scott breaking house arrest, especially the overzealous agent Jimmy Woo. There's also Sonny Birch, a black market dealer they've been buying parts from who's gotten an inkling of what they're building and wants to profit off it. And there's Ava Starr, aka Ghost. Bill Foster has been working with her to find a cure before the quantum disease kills her, something which is only days away now. Their attempts thus far have failed, but they find out about Hank's efforts and realize Janet has been absorbing quantum energy for 3 decades. If they rescue her from the quantum realm, they could extract that energy and use it to cure Ava. But, Hank argues, that will likely kill Janet. Thing is, Ava is desperate. She's hurt a lot of people. What's one more? In the midst of all this, Luis and Scott's security company is on the verge of landing a big client. Luis will be meeting with the client tomorrow, but first they need to make adjustments to the proposed plans, something only Scott knows how to do. So after evading Birch, Ghost, and the FBI, Scott tells Luis how to find Hank's lab, currently hidden in the woods. In the meantime, Hank and Hope activate the quantum tunnel, and entanglement kicks in again, allowing Janet to speak through Scott, and warn that they only have 2 hours to rescue her. The probability fields are currently aligned just right, and it'll be another century before they're aligned again. She gives them her location, but they can't rescue her now, because as though on cue, Luis calls with some bad news. Birch found Luis and used truth serum to extract Scott's location, then shared that info with a contact at the FBI. Now, they're closing in. Scott confesses his mistake to Hank and Hope, and they're once again forced to go on the run. After Germany, and now this, they're ready to cut him out of their life entirely. But he's soon given the chance to redeem himself. First, Scott runs home to ensure that when Woo checks, he'll find him still abiding by house arrest. Then, once he learns Hope and Hank have been taken into FBI custody, he risks everything to break them out, because if he's caught, he goes back to prison and loses all the trust he gained with his family. Worst of all, he'd lose his daughter Cassie again. After breaking them out, he helps them evade Birch, the FBI, and Ghost, even recruiting help from Luis and his friends, to finally give Hank a chance to see his wife. While Ant-Man and the Wasp buy him time, Hank goes subatomic, and after 30 years away, finally reunites with Janet. When they return from the quantum realm, Janet sees Ava in pain, and shares some of her quantum energy to stabilize her. It's not a permanent cure, but for now, it stops Ava's years of torment. In the aftermath, having proven his loyalty and his determination to do the right thing, Scott rekindles his relationship with Hope, and with his house arrest over, he gets to spend more time with both her and his daughter Cassie. Soon, Hank and Hope send Scott into the quantum realm to collect healing particles for Ava, but before they can bring him back, they vanish. It seems that while Scott and the Pyms enjoyed their safety and comfort, the Mad Titan Thanos completed his quest, collecting all 6 Infinity Stones and using them to erase half of all life in the universe. While Scott is trapped in the quantum realm, the surviving Avengers get back to work. They track down Thanos to obtain the stones and undo what he did. But they're too late. Thanos has destroyed the stones, so Thor beheads him and the Avengers return to Earth. 5 years later, a rat skitters over Pym's old quantum equipment, inadvertently freeing Scott. He wanders through a traumatized world, barely understanding what happened, but quickly realizing many were lost. He runs home to find with relief that his daughter was not one of them, though he did miss 5 years of her life. His next stop is Avengers HQ, where he shares a theory. He spent 5 years in the quantum realm, but to him it was only 5 hours. Time works differently there. Maybe they could take advantage of that and use the quantum realm to time travel and fix what Thanos broke. They take the idea to someone with the right expertise, Tony Stark. But Stark is a changed man. With Pepper and Morgan, now he has something to lose. This idea is impossible and reckless. But when the Avengers leave, the idea stays. It keeps him up, and he realizes it could be done. Working with Banner, he proves it. Now, they just need a plan for their time heist. They know they can't change the past, so going back and stopping Thanos isn't an option. That would just create a separate reality, leaving this one no less broken. But they can borrow Infinity Stones from that separate reality and use them to reverse the snap in this one. They just need to determine where and when each of the stones can be found. Thankfully, each of them have had experiences involving the stones, so collectively, they're able to pin them down. They split into 3 teams and divide the remaining Pym particles among them. They'll have enough for 1 round trip each and no more, so there is no room for error. Rogers, Stark, Banner, and Lang head to 2012 during the Battle of New York. Banner obtains the Time Stone from the Ancient One. Rogers grabs Loki's scepter, containing the Mind Stone, while Stark and Lang get the Tesseract, containing the Space Stone. But Loki manages to snatch it and disappear, so they're forced to improvise. They could go back in time again to grab the stone, but that would leave them with no Pym particles for the trip back. But what if they could visit a time where both the Power Stone and some Pym particles could be found? Lang takes the scepter back to 2023, while Tony and Steve head to a 1970 Camp Lehigh, where Tony's father studies the Tesseract and Hank Pym works on his Pym particles. Borrowing both allows Tony and Steve to retrieve the Space Stone and return to the present. Meanwhile, Thor and Rocket obtain the Ether, the Reality Stone in another form, from 2013 Asgard, while Nebula, Rhodes, Barton, and Romanoff head to 2014. Nebula and Rhodes retrieve the Power Stone from Morag, while Romanoff and Barton head to Vormir, where the price is paid. A soul for a soul. Romanoff sacrifices herself, and Barton leaves with the Soul Stone, reuniting in the present with the other Avengers. With all 6 stones, Hulk snaps, and all who disappeared 5 years ago are returned. But the Nebula who returned from 2014 is an imposter. The past Nebula, the one still loyal to Thanos, swapped places with her future self and returned to the Avengers present in 2023. Where she opens a time portal, bringing her Thanos and his armies into the present. He quickly attacks Avengers HQ, destroying their time machine. Ant-Man joins the others in a historical game of keep away, trying to get the stones as far from Thanos as possible. They'd send them back in time where they came from, but the time machine is destroyed. That wasn't our only time machine, Scott realizes. The quantum tunnel in his van, the one which trapped him for 5 years. He reunites with Hope on the battlefield, and they work on activating the tunnel, until Thanos destroys it. Not long after that, Thanos retrieves the stones, and unlike his predecessor, he will not erase half of life. He'll erase it all, and start from scratch, with new peoples who won't resist his ways. But Stark gets the stones back, and though it costs him his life, he snaps Thanos and his armies out of existence. Scott returns home with Hope, to the reason why he fights so hard, his daughter Cassie. And a week later, Scott, Hope, Hank, and Janet attend Stark's funeral. Over the next couple of years, Scott joins the ranks of the other Avengers as a world-renowned hero. But soon, in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Scott, Hope, Janet, and Cassie will visit the quantum realm, where they will face a villain who may be even more dangerous than Thanos, Kang the Conqueror. Who is Kang? Spoilers for Loki ahead. Nathaniel Richards was a scientist in the 31st century who discovered that his reality was one of many alternate timelines. He learned to traverse them and meet other versions of himself. At first, they worked together, sharing knowledge, resources, and technology. But some of his variants weren't so kind, and saw those other worlds as more worlds to conquer. This resulted in multiversal war, until one Nathaniel in particular won that war to become the last man standing, or he who remains. To ensure none of his variants restart that war, he created something called the Time Variant Authority, whose purpose is to maintain one sacred timeline. If anyone strays off their destined path, threatening to create a new, branching timeline, they are labeled a variant and pruned along with their branching timeline, sent to a void at the end of time. Thus, the rest of the sacred timeline stays on track. By stealing the Tesseract in 2012 during the Avengers time heist, one Loki became a variant and met another, named Sylvie. The two revolted against the fates bestowed on them by the TVA and came face to face with He Who Remains. He warned that killing him would restart the multiversal war, but Sylvie, having lived a lifetime as a variant on the run across timelines, had good reason to doubt him. So she took her revenge and killed him. Loki returns to the TVA, and there finds a statue of Kang the Conqueror, one of the most dangerous Nathaniel variants, apparently unleashed thanks to the death of He Who Remains. And now you're ready for Quantumania. By the way, much of this video was taken from a much larger video I made recapping the entire MCU timeline in chronological order. So if you want to see Ant-Man's journey in the context of everyone else's journeys, check out that video by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more. With that, thank you for watching, and see you on the next One Take.